We have the map veto ready for you here, so let's toss it on up. And we'll be starting with Rise Nation on defense and Space Station. I like that they rhyme, and I'm gonna be playing to that all match. Rise Nation on defense, Space Station on attack. You've got both Bank and Oregon's blocked out, so we're not gonna have a repeat of the match we just saw. Instead, we'll go to Consulate, a very interesting map, one that we have seen Space Station play a number of times, but don't have the most robust data on Rise Nation about. So it'll be very intriguing to see the way that Rise Nation does this. I can imagine Rise Nation will play very loose on Consulate, very similar to what we saw in the ENCE G2 matchup on Consulate.
I hope so.
Which was ENCE. If you didn't watch the EU matchup, ENCE decided to throw a lot of conventional wisdom to the Wolves and just ran around endlessly and seemed to perplex G2 a lot. I could see the same thing from Rise Nation here. But what are your thoughts? Do you think that Rise Nation has a fighting chance? They certainly don't want to end this first half with with no wins.
Yikes.
But that's pretty lopsided. Almost 80%, 79% for Space Station.
And
I
don't fault anybody for deciding this, honestly. Yeah.
Look at that. That might be the highest draw number we've ever seen, and that's because Space Station and draws name a more iconic duo, right?
Exactly.
It's like peanut butter and jelly.
I've never had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
That's bizarre.
It's only peanut butter.
But I mean, you look at Space Station, and they picked up 3 big points yesterday in their match, right? They have 4 points through draws. So they spend 4 matches unable to best their opponents. They walk away with 4 points. They have 1 match where they best their opponent, and they pick up 3, almost the same amount. This is a must-win situation for Space Station.
Exactly. If you don't win this at this point, you lose the ability to contend with the big dogs in the second half of the season.
Right. We went into it a little bit about how many points you need. And you don't have a lot of points left, right? Next season, or next half of the season, you got 21 points on the board. Space Station currently sit at 7. That means that their ceiling, if they don't win today, is 28. That's only 12 points. That's 4 victories that you need for one of the top 2 teams. And they secure their spot, and Space Station is left in the cold no matter what. You can be perfect through that second half. So, how do you beat Space Station? How do you beat Rise Nation? Well, Rise Nation thinks that taking Rampy out of the gunfights on attack is a pretty suitable decision for them.
They didn't ban Ashe, they banned Rampy.
And that is correct. So Rise Nation's first ban will be on the Ashe, and then they'll also take care of Echo.
Yeah, I completely understand the Valkyrie ban in this situation. We've been talking about this. 2 defenders that are banned are information gatherers in their own right, and even Echo being able to deny things with his yokais. 2 of them can support roam, all of that. Echo just an excellent player, an excellent operator to run on the defense, and especially on a map like Consulate, where you have a lot of space, for example, on Garage, to tuck him out in somewhere very safe in a bunker on his own, and just control his drones. Why do something when drones can do it better?
I'm just going to lie down, let Yokai do the rest. Or however he says it.
Yeah.
The Ying ban is a smart ban and a counter ban. So both the attacking bans that we see here from both SSG and Rise are deliberately to affect somebody on the other team. You put Rambi on Zofia. Now, Zofia doesn't do what Ashe does, fair, but a lot of teams will run a Zofia in lieu of an Ashe. Taking the Ying out is directly towards Rise Nation, their propensity to put Vandal on that role. Though Vandal did play a lot of Buck yesterday, if I recall correctly, when he was on attack. So there's flexibility there on Vandal's side of things. He's going to be hunkered down with the Maestro. He's playing primarily Dog on defense yesterday. Also saw Hyper play Dog, if I remember correctly, a couple of times.
Yeah, Hyper being a player that, compared to the rest of the team, has been putting up good numbers on the squad. And he was a great pickup. Basically halfway through Season 8, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it was right after DreamHack Austin. No, that was
my understanding.
That was the start of Season 8.
Hyper made his debut at the start of the season.
Yeah. So that was. I'm imagining after DreamHack Austin
for Space Station, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
So it was DH Austin, which was in early June. So that was right as the season was starting. Basically, when we had those delays, etc. That got ironed out, but they have been definitely doing very well. At least these 2 players, they mentioned very specifically, from SSG and Rise. And Space Station, of course, starting off in the attack. They're bringing Bosco on the Buck. And what does he do? First checklist for the Buck, destroy the top of the wall. And it is not completely reinforced. So you're going to be able to lob grenades into anybody playing really in the console chamber, in the cubby. is going to try to walk his drone up, but the mute is not in play by Rise in this situation. They're actually going to opt out for the Bandit, which is an odd choice given the fact of how, prevalent the mute is, but Hyper, there you go. The instant I mentioned was like, just stop talking, Lush, and he finds the hit. And I'm not sure if that angle was preset, but man, what a shot.
Absolutely beautiful there, and it looked like he was aided by England's pulse scanner as well. Now there's a Valkyrie ban, sure, but you can still have some form of information that can be relayed to the rest of your team, and Pulse with his 9-meter range on that cardiac sensor is going to be more than sufficient, especially if you find yourself in a position like Chala just did. It's also the only hard breacher here from SSG, and after losing that, hard breacher to Chala, also a little bit of a waste of utility there, as we have Bosco's nade get eaten on yellow stairs. Rampy struggling to contain the defender that was playing at the top of Spiral. Redeemer will take out Hyper, so the Bandit is down. But now you're going to need to push up as SSG. Imagine there you go.
Oh.
Skeleton Key, take it a close range fight, and you walk away with the victory. No ADS juggling. But both Rampy and Bosco will emerge from that fight very wounded, which will be beneficial for Rise with a smoke on the board and only a minute to go.
And how are they trying to attempt to do this even? They're going to probably try to go up those yellow stairs. But guess what? England's below you, and Ghost is on top. An extra angle from Vandal being held here in the Maestro. Redeemer will try to vault on in. As the smoke will come out to block off line of sight. That's both of them out. No usage of the Inox. It doesn't really matter. He'll pre-fire, but he gets actually pre-fired by Ghost. A lot of damage done to the smoke as Vandal, though. Find the kill on Rampy. He'll find two. And the third one as well to drop them all off. And that's the round as England will finish off Bosco. Hold down on bottom side, and we'll have a drop here at Chala. I think it was, I'm not sure what the problem was, but we should have, we're waiting for a call here for rehost, and indeed, we're going to go for a rehost in this matchup. Not too sure what's going on with pings and connections tonight, but
some issues on the internet for the past 48 hours, give or take.
It would be a bit difficult. Space Station, they're playing from outer space. It's a bit difficult to have a steady ping.
Yeah, I don't think satellite internet's actually gotten quite that high. And even though they were definitely over the moon with their victory yesterday, they need to come back down to Earth. So hopefully Chala's ping does as well. It can return to a proper orbit, and then we can get on with the game, as that did appear to be what the issue was, at least communicated by the players, as was visualized in the text chat.
Well, you know what they say, men are from Mars, so it's very possible that with that long of a distance, it can be fairly complicated to go back from the red planet down to their blue side attack.
So we start things off in very similar fashion here. Round number 2 of the Reciprocity DZ match. What happens? Hot and Cold guns everybody down with the Alda. Round number 1 of the SSG Rise match. What happens? Vandal guns 3 people down with the Alda.
I think we're sensing a pattern.
I think it happens to be
I'm no
Maestro
scientist.
is very strong.
I'm no scientist here.
I'm no Maestroologist.
Well,
But that Alda cray. That Alda is cray. Is cray.
oh, okay.
It's cray cray. I believe would be. If there was like a tier
I can get
list,
2008 references.
you could say like tier lists, right? It's like tier like F, D, C, B, A, S is like really good. And then there's like cray. And that's just a picture of Maestro smiling,
Basically.
I feel like. Yeah.
Can't wait to do that.
It does not surprise me.
Yeah.
If there were ever an operator that you just fully embody, almost as if he was designed around you, it's Maestro.
And you, actually, for Buck, I don't know if you've seen the similarities.
Some similarities.
Stop.
Not that much.
Okay, stop.
He's got blue eyes. He's got like brown
Bucky
hair.
boy, let's calm it down. You know.
He's French Canadian. I'm not.
Are you taking that as an insult?
No, I'm just.
They have the
there's
best poutine. Okay, first of all, let's talk about that. They have the best poutine.
Northern Ontario's got some pretty good poutine as well.
It's
so
not as good. Still not as good as.
Don't even start with me.
And they got the best maple syrup.
That's true. I'll give them that.
There you go. Eat it, Maine.
Though once again, Northern Ontario also great maple syrup.
They're pretty close, anyways. At that point, they're pretty much Quebec light.
A lot of similarities. Now, hard to do a lot of digging on that round in particular. If the issue was involving Chala's ping, and then he got picked off early, might have not been playing at full strength in that regard, even though it was a proper read by both England and Hyper. I'm very curious to see what Rise is going to do, because In the matchup against Rogue yesterday, Ranger gave credit to how unpredictable a couple times Rise was, in particular England, when he was playing the Vigil up top. More of an issue that Rogue didn't appropriately drone out the trading room, but more so that England was still elusive.
Very true.
England is a tremendous player. Oftentimes, he's tasked with roles where he doesn't really show up on the kill feed. Usually, he's playing Smoke. He plays Castle. He's been playing Pulse here. We've seen him play Vigil. But by and large, he's going to be stuck somewhere on site, giving intel and comms to the rest of his team, enabling people, like when Vertical was on the roster, now Hyper, trying to play off of Ghost, but Ghost also tended to be playing a little bit more conservatively yesterday on support roles.
Yeah.
And that's something to take note of as well, because very similarly, Ghost was not playing all that aggressively with what we saw. It was Beastly that was playing the Jaeger on Yellow Stairs. You know, you had the Maestro of Vandal on site. Ghost was inhabiting kind of a flex role, more of a static anchor role, while you had both Hyper as well as England off roaming. So that's very interesting because they brought Ghost in to play on Rise Nation as somebody to fill Vertical's roles.
As more of an aggressive player, right?
But let's be honest, Ghost's stats and the way that they've used him have really lagged behind not just Vertical's, but also what you expect out of somebody playing that role. It doesn't surprise me that they might find a better use for him and maybe try to move somebody like Beastly, like Vandal, onto a more aggressive role.
Here's the thing, though. You look at Rise Nation, a lot of their strategies are still similar to what we used to see last season. Not much has changed, and I have to say, you mentioned Beastly, putting certain people on roles that obviously don't fit them. I say obviously because you look at the numbers and there's a certain point where you have nothing to show for it on the board. There has to be some sort of change. And I know, yesterday I made the joke, haha, coach, whatever. But today I will actually be very serious about it. Not having a coach to direct you, it's a problem for you now. I don't know how they're doing in scrims, but looking at things here, not really working out too well. You look at strategies, they're kind of still stale. I mean, in this round particularly, however, Rise Nation were able to get more aggressive early on, which is 100% kudos. That's exactly how you're supposed to play now. But when you play like they did yesterday, which is most of the time sit back and play passively, and then maybe you'll see the round where England does the work. You mentioned the Vigil specifically, as they were playing last night on Bank versus Rogue. That was more Rogue's problem than...
Yep. That is, even Rangers said that. That was on them.
They didn't drone it.
They droned incorrectly. Somebody missed it. And that oversight, while usually not that big of a deal, ended up being a fatal mistake for that round because England picked up 3 kills in the same position. But when you look at that round in particular, there's very little conclusions that we can draw from that. Yep. Number one, the very first kill that went in the entire round was the singular hard breacher. Now, Consulate is a map where we've seen teams pull off executes, especially on both lobby as well as the console office on that second floor without a hard breacher.
True.
It's doable. If Glaz remains unbanned, you can smoke off long desk. You can smoke off console office. You can smoke off small desk or the main desk at the top of yellow and push from there. You can get your hard breacher to open up the wall into meeting. You can get the hard breacher to open up the wall into the cubby of console office. A lot of teams will run a Hibana instead of a Thermite, but Thermite is not a must pick, but certainly sees a much higher and inflated rate of play because of the fact that, once again, he excels in areas as an operator where there are nice long walls. Clubhouse, Border, and Consulate. No surprise.
And you mentioned these maps. I want to add Coastline to this, but you go back through the past 6 play days and you look at SSG's play. Rampy plays the Ash in a specific way. And I want to highlight that one ban. Because Rampy relies on it to have that extra speed to peek through everything. And had Rampy had access to the Ash in that situation, I would not be surprised at all if he barges in through Garage and goes for that early fight early on, because a lot of teams have been doing that. Empire in particular. You challenge the bottom floor just in case, and you should have drawn out that there's a pulse, and should have that information. So, then there's nobody on site off of your initial droning, you know there's somewhere else. And that's where you penetrate from the bottom side and try to come in and contest. And I think that ban is actually affecting them. It did affect them the very first round. I'm not sure if it's going to continue, but Rampy's change is to basically use Ash's side grade. You trade away that extra speed and firepower for more utility. But is that really the role that Rampy should be on? We'll just have to see, because these next couple of attacking rounds we'll see will prove if Rampy is fit for the job or he's just made for something else. And, you know, there's a clear difference between someone not really fitting in or being able to really pull their weight, and then just someone else that is not on a role that they are comfortable with and should be on, given the setup and how they play.
I mean, I like that you called Zofia a side grade. I think right now, for a lot of players, she's more of a downgrade over what you're trying to do with Ashe. As an operator, I think she's a side grade. But in the way that Rampy plays, I'm not exactly certain if Zofia is
100%.
is exactly the play.
I would expect Jackal maybe to be played.
I mean, you can just go, you can go with IQ. You can maybe go with a Sledge, but I mean, there's options at your disposal. You could even do Maverick too. There's opportunities. I don't think there's anything wrong with Zofia. I haven't really seen a lot of footage on Rampy playing Zofia, so I can't really weigh in on it.
And that's the big deal. Rampy is not, in my opinion, at least off of that first round, is not meant for that role. He is meant for more of an aggressive one, which is why, you know, we said the IQ, the Maverick as well, you know, there's Jackal, all three operators that would fit that position much better than the Zofia. But it's not a knock on the operator, it's a knock on the role that this particular player has been presented.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see how it's going to work out here on a garage take for Space Station, and it's a garage defense, obviously, for Rise Nation. The Echo and the Valkyrie band. Valkyrie is not paramount here on Consulate. I mean, obviously, she's a very strong operator. Don't get me wrong. A lot of teams will run her because she has good usage. And the one thing with the Valkyrie on Consulate is that it also almost inevitably requires an IQ. Hyper, I imagine, was trying to peek yellow and gets sprayed down by Chala. Having Hyper play on the Legion and dying in the first minute means that you're going to have very minimal coverage from the Legion's traps, and you're not going to be able to lock down the site in the latter half of this round. It also means that the only real operator that was holding Piano is gone. And you can see Bosco makes quick work of the floor inside of Piano, and he's just going to open everything up. That is going to be a major headache for Rise Nation. Typically, you would see them as just a defense. Try to counterpunch, maybe with a C4 or a shotgun, but no. Rise Nation have completely peeled off and fallen back, and those garage panels are totally free now for Chala to be able to open up. And unfortunately, Rise Nation is kind of trapped in the latter back part of the site.
Yeah, well, now that'll allow at least Chala to open up one half the wall. Should be able to open up the second one. As there's Bosco from above, just for support. And England actually goes for the quick peek of the server stairs, but gets tagged and a bit of damage done to him. Ghost is going to get spotted behind the mirror window. Nothing too surprising, and England is still alive there, but not for long. Rampy to take him out. Great hold here using the walls. Back server stairs to his advantage. Beastly will drop in and is not hurt. That's the silent drop for you. Bosco will get taken out, and the hatch is not open, but Beastly will still find the kill. Low on health, but he's still alive, and Rampy will have to engage. One bullet of literally anything will take down Bandit, and there you go. Rampy, well done, but Vandal with a double C4 on Redeemer and Chala as they rush into the site to go for the plant. Rampy's all on his own. Diffuser is right in the middle here of the garage. He'll find one kill on the Mira. He's in a 1v1 though, 5 seconds on the clock. Oh no, he misses the feet of Ghost. 1 second left and Ghost runs away. They're gonna try and play a ring around the rosy. Oh man, but there's so many posies that are in the back pocket of the smoke there. I guess that's realistically what's inside those canisters.
Now we can see the silhouettes here, but
he saw the feet.
It looked like the gun casing was covering most of it. And depending on what resolution and depending on what field of view Rampy is playing with, there's a very high likelihood that he didn't actually see the smoke.
Good point.
Especially with the gun casing of the ACOG, you're usually looking dead center. You're not looking around it. And even though it did appear that there were some marks for both players, you have smoke having all the advantage in that case. You're both 2 speeds. Nobody's going to be able to pounce on you. That's a big difference that Ashe could have made there in particular. The Ashe could have just sprinted on up. She has a significant speed advantage. Doesn't end up being the case. So second round in a row that Rise Nation have put in great work, and Vandal in particular, so far with 5 kills. He had 3 before the break. He's doing a dominating performance. And he's playing operators, though, that are not necessarily your operators that you expect to frag well, but have the capabilities of doing so. A Nitro Cell, a decent gun, and now back on the Maestro. He's got things working in his favor. And who knows? For Rise Nation yesterday against Rogue, I think they put in a better performance than they have against most teams. And I think a large part of that were the role swaps. Ghost looks more comfortable and almost less skittish playing on site and being able to help the rest of the team as that support player. Whereas I think England on the roam is doing better work. Keep in mind that when England played for CLG, this was something that CLG experimented with as well, putting England on the roam. And it kind of paid dividends for a little bit, maybe a game or two here, but it wasn't the right fit for the team because that puts guys on anchor. So because of this, you put England on the roam. He's looking a lot more comfortable. He's able to help the team, maybe not necessarily in terms of kills outright, but he's able to try and keep the rest of his team well composed and well informed. He often works in tandem with Hyper, who was the opening frag for Space Station in the previous round. And of course, losing your Legion, as I mentioned early on, not detrimental, but definitely not the first operator you want to see on the board. This time, with it being a lobby defense, you've got Hyper on the dock, so being able to engage with those long ranges that we know you tend to see on lobby, this makes an awful lot of sense. And with the sustain that you can get from a dock, there's a good chance that Hyper could be able to ride out a kill or two here without finally being picked off.
Yeah, and the sustain is exactly why dock gets played on here, just because there's so many phases for the defense in it that you peel off bit by bit. You are allowed a few seconds between different parts of that assault to heal yourself up or put your, top up your allies like 200 health. In the meantime, Bosco holding the service stairs, Chala debating if he should use his Kairos. He already did. 2 sets being used up to open up the entry into projector room. Grenade lobbed it in the back, but will not connect with anyone in the kitchen area. Rampy taking the damage on the Zofia. More damage done to Bosco. There he goes. Got to be very careful how he engages against the dock, as you heard that MP5 fire in. England, in the meantime, is just relaying info.
Attackers dropped the diffuser.
Shield has already been dropped in front of the Maestro. There's a player on the outside here from Spacestation trying to fight against it, and there's no dive out from the Maestro just yet. Oh no, he can't find the angle on the arm.
Doesn't look like there's any coverage here, though, on the Vandal, who just pushes on up and comes so close to taking out the Jackal. A smoke grenade will get tossed in, but no, not correctly placed. Redeemer missing by just a hair. It will open up an opportunity for Vandal to push on up. England falls first, but Beastly trades him off, taking out Thinking Nade. It's also Diffuser down. So that will need to be a retrieval for Space Station as it sits, just looming at the main doorway of the lobby. And Vandal will just sit over top of it, watching as a Guardian. Hyper takes out Chala, Rampy refrags onto Beastly, and these teams just cannot shake each other. Vandal does not have the angle on the Jackal that he needs at the main door. Hyper is there to pick up his second, takes out Bosco, Ghost unsheaths the SMG-11, down goes Rampy, and Redeemer, who spent the entire time at that main door in a standoff against the Maestro, will finally lose in the fight as Vandal had been looking for that kill for an entire 2 minutes. And he finally gets it, just with the sheer amount of bullets that Alta has. You can go unpunished, firing away, and Rise. 3 rounds, 3 victories.
Now this is on the defense. It's working out pretty well for them. Again, this is Consulate. It's one of the most balanced maps that we have in our pool. There was an interesting conversation a couple days ago about, map balance. Should it be balancing the map perfectly between one side and the other? Should there be a bit of a, a bit of an imbalance, or should you also take in mind that a lot of the big offline events run best of 3 format minimum, which is, in that case, the balance should be around a full best of 3 series. There's these multiple ways, and again, when people hear this, they just think about the extremes. It's like, oh, well, there's going to be an 80% win rate on this side. That's not really what we're talking about here, but still, definitely something to keep in mind. It's an interesting conversation, one that was, propped up a few years ago in other competitive shooters. Something definitely that we can either learn from, or at least start thinking about as we evolve. But Rise so far are looking pretty darn good in this matchup, unlike really a lot of their matches. yesterday they kind of had the flip-flop against Rogue until at the end Rogue were able to close it off. It looked pretty close at some point, but wasn't close enough. Vandal's going to set up his Evil Eyes. Of course, one here in the hallway. Not too surprising. The Bandit has set up his batteries on the inside a projector, but this is North America. This is the region that plays Thatcher the most, so it's not surprising at all that Thinking Age was bringing the Thatcher to run those EMPs, easily clear out the Bandit batteries, bring the CEO a take, and finally, the first time in these 2 days, we're going to see an attack from Admin.
Lycan mentioned in the interview yesterday with us regarding Space Station that Bosco wasn't exactly feeling the most comfortable on his roles, and that's a big part of why Bosco's changed some things up, playing more on smoke on defense. Interesting that you've taken Thinking Nade off of the Buck, because I think he does an exemplary job on that role. Bosco did tend to play more Sledge. Could flex on the Buck when need be. When he's playing on Obey, you usually have those dual soft destructor frag grenade combos in Sledge Buck that were being run by Bosco and Maman before he joined SSG. Now this round right here, it's only a 9-meter length for that cardiac sensor. But for a brief moment, England had every single member of Space Station on his radar. And in addition to having everybody on his radar, well, right now, he's actually grabbed 2. This is a perfect opportunity for a C4 here if Hyper can throw it appropriately. Hunts one down, but he'll miss. Oh no, not a scratch on anybody from Space Station, as both the Bandit and the Pulse were ever so on the hunt. But that explosive sound will at least alert Space Station to the fact there's a Pulse playing below. Hyper is still there just to try and watch and protect that nobody's going to be able to push down those spiral stairs. And as Hyper retreats, being jackal tracked, this could be a great bait that is set up to try and punch out where the Pulse might be playing.
And we'll scan again and find the Bandit yet another time. One set left here as the Maestro refuses to get on the Evil Eye and open her up to the Buck. England still playing downstairs, just relaying the information back to the players of Rise. As 9 meters at some point, you're not going to have a ton of info, but he can still spot the Buck on Spiral. So Ghost this way can't protect himself, and perfect timing on the gas canister. See the peek out into Spiral. Ghost can't find the kill.
This is SSG right now just completely stalling out. Bosco takes down Ghost, finally gets it. Redeemer is there to have his teammates back while Rampy takes down England after a bit of messy shooting in the main lobby around that circle desk. It's been swift for Space Station, as I just said that they were stalling out, but Rise Nation gets a little too antsy, a bit too aggressive, and it ends up biting them, at least for the time being. In a 2v5 that Rise Nation do not look favored to win, especially with that diffuser down for SSG. Both Beastly and Vandal stacked up in Connector, and a double peek here could be their undoing. Redeemer grabs one, but Chala has the other, and it's a perfect round for Space Station. That's a good time to start winning.
Thank you. Finally someone recognized that you can take from admin instead of going up yellow stairs. I'm actually surprised that it took 2 playdays and Consulate being played in both of them to finally see this. If I can bring up the exact amount of rounds that were played to get to this level, as I believe this was game number 1. So we had 11 rounds between Dark Zero and Orglis, and 4 rounds here. It took 11 rounds to finally see an admin take. And it's just so much easier. You're bringing the Habana, you have EMPs. You just breach on through and nobody really can stop you. The easiest way for the defenders to really do anything about it is to contest you on the balcony. And once that's done, well, your round is going to get pretty complicated, but we even saw the attacking side of Dark Zero yesterday pulling it off. Saw Pojo Man playing the Thermite, came back onto the balcony, picked up the diffuser, and then were able to go for the plant later on. But the attack was a bit botched early on because of the aggression of the smoke on the balcony. And it works. Makes a lot of sense that it would go for it, but what's the change now?
10 seconds to go.
What unlocks? It's Garage. And Space Station will have to attack that as Rise are going to set up. See if they end up winning this this round yet another time on this side.
I'm just kind of surprised that Rise would gamble on Console one more time, but I suppose that if they go down to Garage and they're successful here, they could go up to Console for their very final defense. But it's just a decision that can be made on Rise's side of things as to where they want to go. I would guess that Space Station was probably imagining it would go to Garage after losing console office the way they did. I think a lot of that previous round, like I said, was just Rise getting really antsy. England and Hyper both got called back to site. They both got cut down on their approach. A big part of that was Rampy's play in Circle Desk to catch both of them as they rotated up Spiral Stairs, and then Redeemer on the top of Spiral. Both of those guns were able to pick up a kill each, leaving a hole for Rise Nation to crawl out of, and then just couldn't really do much else. As Ghost was actually the first domino that fell, and that was because all the members of Spacestation circled around the meeting area and took out the smoke. Poor Ghost had no coverage. They're unsure what the Maestro was doing in Vandal to be able to help. But we go back to this flexibility here on Rise Nation, and England now on the Maestro will be playing firmly in sight instead of playing offside, helping Hyper. Hyper will likely be enabling Beastly on that pulse. The Hyper's on the other side of the site here. All the way down. He's going to try to open things up and catch somebody from Space Station, but that's a long angle all the way up to the second floor. And there won't be anybody there.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate in that position, but we've seen in the past, actually, a lot of Vigils, for example. There was a certain time where Vigil would just play up in the console chamber and have 2 impact holes to play, or at least one of them, where he can look all the way down here into Garage. And quite a few teams actually used them. In this case, none of that. C4 will not connect. Do a bit of damage. No, actually, no damage to Chala there, as he had taken it, I believe, just from grazing the shock wires that have been put up on the garage door. And also, Space Station so far looking pretty good, not taking any early damage, though. Rampy watching for potential rotations as Bosco walks closer to the yellow stairs. They're going to need to support Chala as he goes in for that diffuser plant. You know, we saw what happened before with the double C4. Should be able to destroy the Evil Eye in the back, and not sure why they open up. Oh, this is to allow the rotation back onto the site. All right, makes a lot of sense.
So batten down the hatches because the storm is coming. Several smokes will try and cut this site off. Chala in the midst of some gas will try to just hang on, very low on HP, but riding it out for the time being. But no! Chala walks back into the line of fire. He ends up getting down from the gas. That's a major misplay on his part. Ghost runs out, picks up 2, looking for a third, and it downs Bosco. What a play from the smoke as he now rotates on over. But Hyper will find 2 of his own. A full house for Rise as Ghost and Hyper get every single one. And that's 4-1 in favor, as nobody's out dueling that pulse with all the information. Rise looking mighty fine here as they move to their final round of defense on Consulate.
The House of the Rising Sun. Good song, probably good for the storyline here that Rise are going through. 4-1 advantage. Again, final round of this half, as I think we've been proven so far. And we have proved that Rampy is more of the player that should be set on aggressive roles. And the Zofia, again, technically, as an operator, a side grade to Ash, but it still requires you to be more of a flex support on your team, instead of being the spearhead to an assault. And that's the trade that you have between the 2 operators. In this case, IQ, help, even him running the Jackal instead of Redeemer would function quite a bit better, because Redeemer is not the player that you put in front of your assault. That's Rampy.
No, Redeemer's usually at the back, but to be fair, Space Station doesn't always use Rampy as the spearhead. They've had Thinking Nate and Bosco be the main entry and kept Rampy on more of a passive, more of a flank watch style role. His match in particular, on Coastline, where he broke the record for most kills in a singular map of Rainbow Six, 22, came in large part where a number of those rounds, Rampy was not the entry. Rampy was the follow-up. And because of that, you don't have to worry about that same level of pressure or presence and worry about being the very first person that gets picked off. It really comes down to the strats that Space Station have available. So, but with console opened up simply because Rise haven't won it in such a long period of time, I am surprised once again to see Rise going to another site. They proved me wrong on Garage, but they're going to go to Lobby. I think it's just more a discomfort with that site in particular, or they feel that Space Station is best attacking that site. And that also plays into it, because you can feel that one site is your best defended site. But if your opponents have your number and they tend to be insufficient on another site, then there's obviously some mind games that can go in there and some strategizing to say, yeah, we might be a 10 on Console, but our opponents are also a 10. But on Garage, we're a 6, but our opponents are a 3. Let's go there instead.
Yep, and it really looks like that is very much the case. Space Station were fairly active on most sites, and actually, even on Garage, the second time, even more than the first time. They had full control. Sure, they had to worry about one player roaming still on top floor, but, you know, that was not really the most important part of that at the end of it. Still, they're just not able to close out the round as they had every single advantage, every hole opened up, not contested in piano pretty much the entire time, and still, even with that, not able to close it. Again, might just be you're not comfortable with the site. That's okay, but you can't let every site turn into that sort of situation. Vandal's still looking for somebody on the outside here in the window and not going to find anyone just yet, as Space Station will set up for yet another style of admin take.
I've got to really admire the way that Vandal's been playing this Maestro on this site. In particular, last time around, he essentially was trying to dare SSG into a fight through the main door. Nobody was willing to give it to him until finally Redeemer had no chance but to sprint on in because the rest of his team had fallen around him. Similar to what we're seeing of Vandal right now, except he does appear to be aided by this deployable shield that might actually have just simply endured through what appeared to be a Zofia explosion.
Yep. And
so that's excellent for the Maestro.
That's what happened earlier on. At least you're trying to utilize the enemy utility for some sort of extra stuff. Oh man, no, Rise, 3 kills in a row. Now it's Chala and thinking he last 2 alive. Well, scratch that, Parker. Is Chala last alive? He'll find 1 kill on a Ghost, but he gets tagged down to around that 70 HP level. Everybody from Rise Nation turning their sights on him, and Hyper will connect. Man, Space Station getting absolutely demolished in this round, and the instant the Maestro had an angle, made it work.
That's a nice flick.
Yeah.
It's a pretty nice flick from Hyper, and a 5-1 scoreline on Consulate is something that we saw at the start of the season, and just simply because Consulate does tend to be more defender-sided. Now, giant asterisk here. Most maps tend to be more defender-sided at the moment. The meta very much favors the defense winning more rounds, but Consulate is one of the highest defender-sided maps, or at least was at the start of the season. It'd be interesting if we could possibly get some info after we're done this first half as to how things have shaken out, and I have no doubt that SiegeGG will likely publish an infographic or shareable at some point, breaking it down. They've been excellent so far this season at keeping track of stats, working just as tirelessly as the production and the talent and the casters here, as well as the players over the, essentially 20-some-odd days that we've had 3 months worth of matches condensed down to, and been pretty exciting overall. So as we switch sides, SSG's defense is going to look a little bit different. Number one, they're not going to really have any bona fide anchors outside of Bosco's smoke. I would presume that Chala is probably going to be staying on site. He's likely going to have both the shotgun and the SMG combo. They might give him the MP5K if they feel like the smoke of Bosco is going to play a little bit safer. That allows the mute of Chala to be able to take longer range fights. You're going to have the simple drone denial with those mute jammers put down, then of course a nitro cell as well.
I'm trying to go through my my archives here, and I found 2 games actually that Mao's 2 times that Mao's before that Rise Nation nowadays played on this map, and they lost both of those matches. One was versus the old Orglis, so Noble back then, and then the second time they played, they also lost versus Cloud9 at 6-4, which is in the old format.
Deploying drone.
But so far, they kind of have Space Station's number, as even in those situations, they were able to grab, 2 rounds on defense, 2 rounds on attack in the old format. And here, oh man, it might be turning to a rush. No. Okay.
It was the intel that they got him where the Pulse was playing, and they knew that they were pretty clear to go into console office because the Pulse is going to be playing down to watch your admin area and your visa as well. So because that information from Redeemer is only going to be in one half of the map, you have an opportunity to go in through the garage. This is a little fascinating, actually. Panels 1 and 2 just got opened up by Rise Nation, rather than 1 and 3, which is what we usually see. And I would suspect that a lot of this is Rise being very convinced that they're able to get that plant down and then transition to a post plant very effectively, using that remaining piece of wall to their advantage.
They can peek around it, they can use it to, to plant close to it, and the remaining piece of wall is fairly slim, but it can definitely cause some sort of problems for the defense. Nobody peeking in for the back. Bosco will actually take a bit of damage. playing behind the white van. More flashes being thrown into him. No ADSs from Space Station. Of course, Jaeger is not present in this round to catch all those flashes. Utility being used up here by Capitao Vandal. There's nobody to receive on the other end.
I actually didn't give England enough credit there. With the way that England opened that up, there's actually next to no coverage on that garage panel, and I thought that there would be more on the left-hand side. But Rampy gets caught as he tries to get towards that, what appeared to be the main part of the desk, and there's Hyper to catch him. Got Thinking Nade playing just below the Zofia, just trying to hold off, as those two are going to be in a dance with death for the time being. Rise struggling to get an execute off, as you can see the yellow smoke cloud in front of them. Ghost and Hyper will both team up and get 2 kills. One prone down in the staff area. That'll be Redeemer, who will get finished off very, very early. And this round is just falling to pieces. This entire match is falling to pieces, as Space Station are completely lost, with Hyper able to get one onto Chala. And man, oh man, Rise Nation already on match point 6-1.
What happened?
This was the Mouse, though, that we saw, or this was the Rise Nation when they were known as Mouse, that we saw for the latter half of that season. It seems like after like 6 games, Mouse just wakes up and then carried on. Now Rise Nation, after 6 games, waking up, and they're looking like they're going to carry on as well. Doesn't matter what org they're playing under. All that matters is that this team are able to find some kind of motivation to be able to continue on upwards.
Yeah, and I really wonder what has changed over the past few play days. But right now, it might be a bit too late to hope for that land spot. What they're going to be looking for mostly at the end of this 7th play day, the last one of this half of the season, is to just save themselves from relegation. And this is when you start doing it.
Attackers have discovered the location of a bomb.
I'm pretty excited to see more of this, actually. Now I've changed my perspective completely over Rise Nation. Space Station were only able to net 1 round off of all of this. It was on their attack, and they were attacking via admin into the console chamber. And it worked out just fine. It looks like Rise Nation just had no clue how to deal with that. And guess what? In this case, they put up so many rounds on that defense, 5 in total, that now you lose a couple rounds here and there. You're at least guaranteeing yourself a point, which is something to highlight. Rise Nation will actually find a point at the end of this play. Huge there for the team. It's a lot of motivation that they need, which is fairly lacking.
And the last team that had yet to find a point in the North American, Latin American, and European regions. So we had our first loss yesterday, or rather with reciprocity today. EG yesterday was the first perfect team to get a scuff on their record. And then today, reciprocity gets a loss. And then Rise Nation gets at least 1 point. So lots of firsts today, interestingly enough. And it was almost as if Space Station met with the devil yesterday and made a deal with the devil, said no more ties. And the devil said, all right. Well, it might not be a tie, but how about a loss? Well, you don't get a tie, Space Station fans. But for the time being, it doesn't look like you're going to get the result you wanted either.
You are trading your soul in this case. And Beelzebub, well, you're going to have to dance a pretty darn tough dance and sing quite along to try and make it through. But Space Station, with all hopes on their side, they're going to need to tie this one up and make it their 5th tie, I guess, in this season, if they want to grab around a point at the end of it. Thinking Nade rotating down, as there's a lot of bodies being put on the top floor by Space Station dedicated to their own play. Rise Nation have yet to clear, and I don't even know if they want to clear them. Only Beastly still up on the window, trying to find someone by the console chamber.
No, it looks like Rise is just going to try to go for an execute straight onto the site. That's what they attempted earlier on. You saw that Space Station responded. A couple of toxic canisters getting tossed out, which is why some members of Rise are a little softened up. England and Hyper in particular have lost anywhere from 25 to 30% of their HP in that encounter. And there was quite a large ruckus as all the gunfire was being exchanged from all these various members. Hyper coming very close to grabbing a kill onto Redeemer, off of the Pulse, onto the Maestro. A much more familiar role for Redeemer. Also, those Evil Eyes had tased a number of members of Rise Nation at the same time. That's an easy kill for Thinking Nade, as he's going to grab Ghost, and Hyper is not quick enough to follow up, even though the Gizmot will stun Thinking Nade for a short period of time. Oh, down in Zulu, daring a fight against Hyper is going to be Thinking Nade. Rampy gets England on the entry, but Rise doubles up, and 3 for Rise. They swing this entire round out of nowhere. Bosco, star for utility. Redeemer still has the Evil Eyes up, but this will have to be a frag fest. Vandal takes one down, Bosco the other, and the newest member of Space Station will have to try to take down 2 and keep his team's hopes and dreams in it. But he'll get pushed from 2 angles, and Rise Nation will do what a lot of people thought the unthinkable. They will grab their very first victory. Not just their first set of points, but a full win as well. It took 7 weeks, but every single team in NA now on that leaderboard list and on the score sheet.
And what a play day. 7-1 victory. That's not just, oh, we won and put some rounds on the board. That is, we absolutely ran over Space Station. This is Team Rocket blasting off again at the end of the episode. The Space Station had no idea how to deal with Rise Nation. And it's not like those rounds where most of the rounds that Rise that took were very close. Wasn't the case. Rise just kind of had entire control, and I'm pleasantly surprised that this happened, because this means that, hey, they're still gonna fight for this, and it's not just, oh, we're gonna lay on our backs and take it and see how this entire season is gonna go through. Now again, it is not a second too soon, being weekday number 7, but better late than never.
Yeah, and they've got a massive hole to dig themselves out of, not to try and diminish this victory. This is huge, and you can start climbing and you can start crawling. Now keep in mind that there's an auto relegation spot that you want to avoid. That might be a bit more realistic to avoid that spot than possibly making it to playoffs. Sure. Right. I think the team is aware of this. But NA from 4th on down is extremely competitive right now. Space Station entered the day not too far off. They're sitting in, I believe, 5th or 6th.
They're 4th with 7 points. Rogue are 5th with 7 points. Accelerate at 6, Orglis at 4, and now Rise put 3 on the board. They need it.
There is turmoil and transfer, or rather turnover, that can happen here in all of these ranks, and it's like we said, there's still 7 more play days to go. You still got half of the season. You can start finding your footing and make the changes over this break. Some of these teams, Rise Nation included, will have an extra month or so until we're back to be able to figure out what they can continue to do. They looked confident against Rogue yesterday. They looked like they had a number of really good rounds, even though the result wasn't what they wanted. They gave Rogue a pretty big scare. Now, Rogue have looked a little bit of a step back from what we've seen them in previous seasons, but Space Station is no slouch of a team. And they've been able to keep step with most teams. They won the 6 Invitational qualifier spot. They'll be in Montreal in just a couple weeks. They've got an eye on a much bigger prize right now, but every single season it seems like Space Station somewhere in the top 4. That's in danger and in jeopardy right now. And Rise Nation, they heated up at the right time. And I'm very interested to actually pick their brain and hear what's been going on with them this season, what they've changed, other than a couple role swaps, if there's more confidence in the way they're playing, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, oddly enough, both Space Station and Rise had only had 1 interview so far in the season. Space Station had 1 yesterday, and Rise will have their first one today. And it's just a bit of a shame that it happens to be the day where they have to play against one another. And SSG kind of stifled their momentum and their chances to really break into the top. Had they gotten this win here, they could have gotten 10 points on the board and try to close the gap between themselves and Dark Zero, because now Dark Zero is sitting pretty with, quite a few points ahead of them, around the 16 mark. You're at 7, 16, and it is a huge difference.
Now, mind you, there's still another game to play for Rogue, so Rogue can still possibly try to grab 3 points. But as of right now, the 3rd place team is at 15 points. Rogue is 4th with 7. That's 8 points. That means that Rogue would need to win 3 play days, and the top 3 would all need to lose them for Rogue to be able to crack into that top 3. So that's just going to show you how tough it is. And I mean, we're going to continue to underscore this just so you can keep a good visualization of where the rankings are, because it's extremely interesting. And while there isn't much time that we'll spend really delving into the ranking side of things, because through the first 4 or 5 play days, there's not a lot of data to go with, well, now I think we're at a time where we can start to get into it. But our very first interview with Rise Nation so far this season, and we'll welcome England to your screen. Congratulations, first and foremost, on your first victory so far in NA. Let's walk you through it. What has been going on with the team, just in a general sense, over the 7 play days?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Sound good?
Can you hear us?
Yeah. For sure. Honestly, it's pretty embarrassing, but we've been kind of just struggling to find who we are. We switched up a lot of stuff, went through a roster move, and never found our groove. I'm saying we kind of found it yesterday versus Rogue. Like we threw 3 rounds. Like honestly, it was a privilege to even get 5 rounds versus Team USA, right? Who can get rounds on Team USA? But my point is, I don't know what happened today. Honestly, we just played loose, played aggressive, played our style, and honestly, the first time I ever played as a team, it worked pretty well. So.
This is a nice mirror image of what we saw last season, where you just stormed through North America on the England Revenge Tour through the second half of the previous season. Now, you added Ghost to the roster. He came in and he originally looked like he was fulfilling a lot of Vertical's roles. But over yesterday and today's matches, you've put him more on site, and you yourself have been playing a little bit more aggressively unless you go on to Maestro. What's your thought process behind that?
It's basically Vert's kind of a unique player in the sense that he uses 1Xs, he's really aggressive, Vert always peaks, and that was kind of our style. And him and Hyper, when they roamed, they had a synergy because they were opposite play styles, so it worked well. It's kind of like Skies and Lax in a sense. And when Ghost joined, we had him trying to do that, and we weren't using our players to the best of their ability. That was the reality of it. So I kind of just said, I'll roam, me and Hyper, he'll follow everything I say. We'll just play as a team on the roam, and then on offense, we'll maybe switch off of that just brain dead running in style, and or just have Ghost in a Thatcher role where he's a little more comfortable. And yesterday we could have got a dub there, and today it worked obviously amazingly. And also just Vandal, everyone just played well today. That's just kind of what it came down to.
So what's your focus heading into the next 7 matches? You've got a bit of a break here while the Invitational goes on. You'll be back for the second half. What's the main focus moving forward? Is it playing looser? Is it having everybody settle in? Is it somebody like Ghost who's still acclimating to a certain extent to Pro League, feeling more comfortable as more playdays get played under Rise Nation's banner?
Yeah, I think it's just last year we had their event, or last season had their Revenge Tour. This time it's more of a spiritual journey, just finding how we play again and kind of just sticking to it. We changed up a lot of stuff after USN, and obviously the play days being so close together did not help us because we were struggling already. So, we're at 0 and we're 1 win now. We are 1-6, and the rest of NA is terrible this season. So somehow we're still not completely relegated. So shout out to everyone that's not DZ, EG, and
Reciprocity.
LeBron is back, by the way. Skies is back.
I think he's going by Kyrie Irving right now, if I recall.
Yeah,
I think he's dropped the LeBron mantle. So
he gave it to Hyper. So
of course, classic Paul.
Yeah.
Good for Paul. As he dunked on people today, and he has dunked on people before. Now, anything to say to the fans, etc., at the end of the interview here?
We don't really got much fans, but shout out to everyone who supports us. Shout out to Chief every week, no matter what. We're just looking to get better. We know we've been terrible, so it's only up from here.
Very honest and very introspective. Thank you so much for your thoughts, and good luck on the break. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks. Good luck in the rest of the matches.
Thank you very much.